Can betrayal hurt so much it feels like your heart's been ripped out? I stood on the rooftop of Overlook Lounge, clutching a chilled champagne flute, waiting. Today was my 45th birthday, and Mira, my wife, had promised a surprise. For weeks, she'd whispered about something special, her eyes sparkling as she adjusted my collar or handed me a new blazer. "It's for your big day," she said, and I believed her. Even my parents, Teresa and Harold, called more often than usual. "Don't plan anything for Friday," Mom insisted, her voice carrying that dramatic edge she reserved for grand occasions. I canceled dinner with Malik, my college friend who always teased that my birthdays were paperwork holidays. 45th, I told him. "Looks like the family's actually planning something." He laughed. "A miracle, huh?" At 4 p.m., Mira texted, "Dress nice. You'll love it." I pictured this bar, a place where we once sipped cocktails, the city sprawling below like a promise. I arrived early, wearing that blazer. The hostess led me to a corner table. Candles flickered, champagne sat in a bucket of ice, name cards lined up neatly. Warmth ballooned in my chest. They'd gone all out, but no one came. 30 minutes. An hour. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. I texted Mira. "I'm here. Looks amazing." Silence. The waitress, a young woman with a badge reading Anna, approached, her politeness tinged with pity. "Would you like to order while you wait?" I forced a smile. "No, thanks. They'll be here soon." Then a message pinged. A video. I tapped it, thinking it was a joke, that they'd burst in with balloons and laughter. But the screen showed Venice. Gondolas. Sunlight glinting off water. Mira, holding a wine glass, radiant in a flowing dress, laughed. Behind her stood Mom, Dad, my cousin Brent, her brother Tristan. Everyone but me. Mira looked at the camera. "To Julian, he's probably wondering where we are. Surprise." Laughter erupted. "He won't mind," she added, tossing her hair. "He always forgives." Glasses clinked. The video ended. "I set frozen." The candles hummed. The clink of glasses from nearby tables stabbed my ears. My heart pounded, not with anger, but with a coldness spreading through my chest. They hadn't forgotten. They'd planned this. Made me a fool. I looked at the table. Name cards, champagne I'd paid for. The hope I'd woken with cracked, leaving a hollow ache. I gripped the flute tighter, the glass biting into my palm. Why didn't I see it? Myra's distance these past months. The way she'd look away when I asked what was wrong. Mom's smug smile when she mentioned a surprise. Brent dodging my calls. I replayed family dinners, their silence when I entered the room. Was I that blind? Or did I just not want to see? The city lights glittered below, mocking me. I imagined them in Venice, laughing, calling me convenient, easy to deceive. I wanted to scream, shatter the glass, but I only squeezed it harder. Not here, not in front of these strangers, their glances already heavy with pity. Anna returned, her eyes soft. "Shall I open the champagne?" I nodded. "Yes, do it." The pop echoed like a gunshot. I sipped, the bubbles sharp, the taste bitter, not from the drink, but from the truth sinking in. They didn't just leave me. They orchestrated my absence, toasted to it, and laughed that I stayed at the table, the weight of betrayal pinning me to the chair. Leaving would mean admitting defeat, and I wasn't ready to give them that. The rooftop of Overlook Lounge buzzed with laughter from other tables, each clink of glass a reminder of the video. Myra's voice, her careless toss of hair, the smug chuckles of my family. The champagne flute in my hand was cold, its rim biting into my fingers. I sipped, but the bubbles tasted like ash, soured by the truth. They hadn't just forgotten me. They planned my absence, turned it into a joke, and raised a toast to it. Why didn't I see it? The question clawed at me. Myra's distance these past months. Her quick glances away when I asked if she was okay. The way my mother, Teresa, smirked when she mentioned a surprise. Brent's dodge calls, his half-hearted texts. Family dinners flashed in my mind. Moments when their chatter stopped as I entered the room, their eyes darting to each other like they shared secret. Was I blind? Or did I choose not to look, too afraid of what I'd find? The city lights glittered below, a mocking constellation. I pictured them in Venice, clinking glasses, calling me convenient, the fool who'd wait forever. My chest tightened, not with anger but with a cold, creeping shame. I wanted to scream, to hurl the flute across the room, but I only gripped it harder. Not here, not in front of these strangers, their sidelong glances already heavy with pity. Anna, the waitress, returned, her eyes soft but guarded. "Shall I clear anything, sir?" she asked, her voice low, as if she sensed the storm inside me. I shook my head. "No, I'm fine." The lie tasted worse than the champagne. She hesitated, then set a small plate in front of me, a slice of cheesecake, its surface dusted with powdered sugar. "On the house," she said quietly. "Looks like you could use a sweet moment." Her kindness, so small yet piercing, cracked the wall I'd built around my pain. "Thank you." I managed, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded and walked away, leaving me with the dessert and a flicker of warmth I didn't expect. I stared at the cheesecake, its simplicity mocking the elaborate setup around me. Candles, name cards, the bottle I'd paid for. How pathetic I must look, dressed in this blazer, waiting for a party that was never coming. The thought stung, but I pushed it down. I wouldn't let their laughter be the last word. Not tonight. "Julian, what the hell? You're here alone." Malik's voice cut through the haze. He stood by the table, a gift bag in one hand, his phone in the other, his brows raised in disbelief. My old college friend, the one who could make a funeral feel like a party, looked genuinely shocked. "I saw your story," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thought it was a joke." I shrugged, forcing a half-smile. "Guess the joke's on me." My voice sounded hollow, even to myself. Malik's eyes narrowed as he took in the empty seats, the untouched champagne. "Where's Mira? Your folks?" I handed him my phone, the video still open. He watched in silence, his jaw tightening with every second. When it ended, he set the phone down hard. "They've lost their damn minds," he said, his voice low but sharp. "This isn't a prank. It's cruel." I nodded, unable to speak. My throat burned, not with tears but with the weight of his words. Cruel. That's what it was. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a deliberate cut, meant to sting. Malik leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You're not spending your birthday like this. Give me 20 minutes. I wanted to argue, to tell him I didn't need a pity party, but the truth was I didn't want to be alone. Not with Myra's laughter echoing in my head. Not with the chill of betrayal sinking deeper. "Okay," I said, barely audible. He clapped my shoulder and stood, already typing on his phone. 20 minutes stretched into 40, but then the table came alive. Malik returned with 3 friends, Jasmine, Den, and Clara, people I'd met only in passing. They brought noise, wine, and stories that didn't demand explanations. Jasmine, her curls bouncing, insisted on a selfie. "You look too good in that blazer to be sulking, Julian." I laughed, a real laugh, startling myself. Den ordered appetizers. Clara dragged a speaker closer, and music filled the air. A stranger from a nearby table, a guy in a leather jacket, leaned over and handed me a cigar. "Looks like you need this," he said with a grin. I took it, though I don't smoke. It wasn't about the cigar. It was about being seen. The rooftop warmed, the lights softer now. Malik told a story from college, when we accidentally set off the dorm's fire alarm trying to make pizza. Everyone roared, and for a moment the ache in my chest dulled. I looked at Malik, his easy grin, and thought, these are my people, not the ones laughing in Venice. Anna passed by, catching my eye with a small smile, as if she approved of the shift. But even as I laughed, Myra's voice lingered. "He won't mind." I tightened my grip on the glass, her words a splinter under my skin. She was wrong. I minded, more than she'd ever know. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts. Let them panic. Let them wonder. My silence was my first act of defiance, a quiet vow that their laughter wouldn't break me. The next morning, I sat at the desk in our living room, the silence of the house pressing against me. Myra's laptop was open, her email still logged in, a careless oversight that felt like another jab. I hadn't meant to snoop, but the betrayal from last night burned too fiercely to ignore. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, guilt warring with need. Then I clicked. If she could orchestrate a public humiliation, I could look for answers. Her inbox was a map of deceit. Emails, bookings, itineraries, 3 months of planning laid bare. Hotel reservations in Florence, tickets to Venice, a receipt for the blue dress she'd worn in that video, all paid for with my card. Each click tightened the knot in my chest. But the messages were worse. From Brent, my cousin, "He's so naive, it's almost funny." From my mother, "Julian won't notice, he's always buried in work." And then, a name I didn't know, Soul. Who is Soul? I opened their thread, my pulse hammering. Photos loaded, a hotel room, Mira in a robe, a man beside her, his arm around her waist. The timestamp, the night of my birthday. Soul's message read, "He won't figure it out. Julian's the type to spot a fire only when the house is ash." Myra's reply, "Poor fool." The words hit like a fist. A memory flickered. Our first date, Mira laughing as I spilled wine on my shirt. Her voice warm as she said, "You're so real, Julian." That laughter was gone, replaced by this cold, cutting mockery. They hadn't just left me out. They'd laughed, knowing I'd wait, trust, love. I leaned back, the room spinning. It wasn't just the trip. It was the months of lies, the shared glances, the way they'd all played their parts. My parents, Brent, Tristan, each one complicit, each one betting I'd stay the fool. The shame from last night hardened into something else, clarity. They thought I was weak. They were wrong. I called Malik. "Can you come over?" My voice was steady, but he must have heard the edge. He arrived in under an hour, his usual grin absent as he sat across from me. I showed him the emails, the photos, Soul's words. He read in silence, his jaw tight. When he finished, he looked at me, eyes fierce. "I've been there," he said. "My fiancée, years ago, she cheated, lied, made me feel like nothing. I thought I'd break, but I didn't. You won't either." His story, raw and unguarded, anchored me. Malik wasn't just the guy who'd saved my birthday with a makeshift party. He was proof that pain didn't have to win. "What did you do?" I asked. He shrugged. "Cut her off. Not out of hate, but because I deserved better." His words sank in, simple but heavy. I deserve better. I opened my banking app and froze Myra's accounts. Access to my money, my cards, gone with a few clicks. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. But the real power came in what I didn't do. I didn't call her, didn't text, didn't scream into the void. Silence became my weapon, a refusal to let their laughter define me. Let them wonder. Let them squirm. The laptop screen glowed, Soul's photo staring back. I closed it, but the image lingered. Myra's smile, his arm, their shared secret. Another memory surfaced. A night 5 years ago, dancing with Mira in our kitchen, her head on my shoulder as music played. I'd thought that was us, unshakable. Now I saw the truth. She'd been slipping away long before Venice, and I'd been too trusting to notice. I stood, pacing the room. The house felt foreign, every corner tainted by her presence. The couch where we'd watched movies, the table where we'd argued and made up. My fingers brushed the wedding band on my left hand, its weight suddenly unbearable. I didn't take it off, not yet, but the thought took root. Malik watched me, his voice gentle. "What's next, Julian?" I stopped, staring out the window at the city below. The lights, so mocking last night, now seemed indifferent, waiting for my move. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm not staying here in this." He nodded. No judgment, just understanding. The phone buzzed. A text from Mira. "Landing tomorrow. We'll talk." I stared at it. Her words as empty as her promises. No apology, no regret, just the assumption I'd be waiting, ready to forgive. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I set the phone down. Let her come home to silence. Let her face the void she'd created. I thought of Anna, the waitress, and her small act of kindness. The cheesecake, her quiet words. Then Malik, turning a ruined night into something alive. They didn't know me, not really, but they'd seen me when my own family hadn't. That was enough to keep going, to step into the unknown without crumbling. The emails, the photos, Soul, they were proof, not just of Myra's betrayal, but of my own blindness. I'd trusted too easily, loved too blindly. But now my eyes were open. I wasn't the fool they thought. Not anymore. I sat back down, Malik still there, his presence a steady reminder. I wasn't alone. Not entirely. And that was enough to start rebuilding, one quiet, deliberate step at a time. The house was too quiet when Mira returned, the kind of silence that amplifies every sound. The click of her heels, the rustle of her coat, the soft thud of her suitcase against the floor. I sat in the kitchen, a mug of coffee gone cold in my hands, the weight of yesterday's discoveries heavy in my chest. Her laptop, still closed on the desk, held the truth I couldn't unsee. Months of lies, Soul's photo, her mocking words. I'd frozen her accounts, chosen silence, but now she was here, and the air crackled with what was coming. "Julian, we need to talk," she said, stepping into the kitchen. She wore the blue dress from Florence, the one she described years ago when we watched a movie about Italy. "If we ever go there, I'll wear it," she'd said then, her eyes bright with dreams. Now, that dress was a taunt, a reminder of her betrayal. Her voice was calm, practiced, as if she'd rehearsed this. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, a gesture so normal it felt obscene. I looked at her, saying nothing. My silence unnerved her. She shifted, her fingers tightening on the towel. "You're upset," she said, sighing. "I get it. The trip was a bad joke. We wanted to shake you up. You've been so distant, Julian, always working, never really here." Her words stung, a sharp twist of the knife. Distant? I thought of the nights I'd stayed up, balancing her expenses, planning our future. The times I'd asked what was wrong, only to be met with her shrugs. But her accusation burrowed in, making me question myself. Had I been too absorbed, too blind to her needs? A memory flickered. Mira laughing as we danced in this very kitchen 5 years ago, her head on my shoulder, the world small and safe. Was that my fault, letting it fade? I set the mug down, the clink loud in the quiet. "A joke," I said, my voice low. 3 months of planning. My money. So, her eyes widened, the towel slipping from her hands. "You went through my emails?" Her tone sharpened, defensive, but I saw the flicker of fear. "You left them open," I said, steady. "You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I was too weak to care." I pushed the phone across the table, Sol's photo still on the screen. Her face paled, but she didn't look away. "Don't make this bigger than it is," she said, her voice trembling now. "You're blowing it out of proportion. Yes, I messed up, but you pushed me away, Julian. You were never present. We needed to live a little, and you're just gone." The words hit harder than I expected. Gone? I remembered her laughter in Venice, her toast to my forgiveness. I remembered Sol's arm around her, her reply. Poor fool. But for a moment, I wavered. What if she was right? What if I let work consume me, left her no choice? The memory of our dance returned, her warmth, the way she'd looked at me like I was enough. Then my eyes fell on her dress. Florence, Sol, the lies stitched into its fabric. The truth snapped back, cold and clear. "You took my birthday," I said, my voice cutting through the air. "My trust, my love, and called it a joke. Now you blame me." Each word was deliberate, a weight dropped between us. Her eyes glistened, but I saw no remorse. Only panic, the realization that her script was failing. She stepped closer, her voice softer, pleading. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Tell me what I can do, Julian. Please." Her hand reached out, but I didn't move. The wedding band on my finger felt like a shackle, its metal biting into my skin. I thought of Malik's words. I deserved better. I thought of Anna's cheesecake, a stranger's kindness that meant more than Myra's promises. "You've done enough," I said, standing. "Your name's off my accounts. Your access is gone." Her breath caught, her face crumpling. "You can't do this," she whispered. "We're family." "We were," I said, "until you decided I was just a shadow." The words landed like stones, unyielding. She stared, tears spilling now, but they didn't move me. I saw the fear in her eyes, not of losing me, but of losing the life I'd funded, the control she'd taken for granted. "Julian, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake. Don't throw us away." Her hand grazed my arm, and for a split second, I felt the pull of our past. Nights on the couch, her laughter, the promises we'd made. But then I saw the dress again, heard her voice in the video, felt the sting of Sol's words. The pull snapped. "Gomira," I said, turning away. "I'm done." She stood there, her sobs quiet but sharp, each one a plea I no longer answered. The door clicked shut behind her, and the house fell silent again. I exhaled, the air lighter, the weight in my chest shifting. Not gone, but different. I walked to the window, the city sprawling below. The lights, once mocking, now felt neutral, a canvas for whatever came next. My fingers brushed the wedding band again, its edges sharp against my skin. I didn't take it off, but I knew I would. Soon. The confrontation hadn't erased the pain, but it carved a path forward, one where I wasn't the fool they'd laughed at. Malik's story, Anna's gesture, my own silence. They were sparks in the dark, proof I could rebuild. Myra's tears, her dress, her lies. They were hers to carry now, not mine. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new loft, the salt-scented breeze carrying the hum of the bay. The water below reflected moonlight, a quiet shimmer that felt like possibility. I'd sold the old house to a young couple, their eyes bright with the kind of love I'd once known. I took only what was mine: books, clothes, my grandmother's upright piano, its worn keys a reminder of her lessons. Love those who see you, not what you provide. The loft was sparse, high-ceilinged, clean. It was mine, untainted by Myra's shadow. The city sprawled beyond, its lights no longer mocking but inviting, a canvas for a life I was building. The pain of that night at Overlook Lounge hadn't vanished, but it had dulled, like a bruise pressed less often. Myra's laughter, Soul's photo, my family's betrayal, they were scars, not wounds. I'd learned to carry them, to let them fuel me instead of break me. I'd founded a fund in my grandmother's name, a lifeline for men like me. Erased, forgotten, starting over. We offer grants, counseling, a hand up. Desmond, a former teacher with tired eyes and a quick smile, had hugged me when I handed him a check to restart his life. "You don't know what this means," he said, voice thick. I did. I'd been there, sitting at that empty table, the weight of betrayal crushing me. Helping him, and others like him, was my way of reclaiming what Mira had tried to take. My phone buzzed, a notification from the fund's email. A new application, another story of loss and hope. I scrolled past it and saw an unread message from Mira. Sent yesterday. "I was wrong, Julian. Please, let's talk. I miss you." Her words, once a tether, now felt like echoes from a life I'd left behind. I didn't reply. Instead, I wired another grant to Desmond's account, a quiet act of defiance. My energy belonged to those who valued it, not to her regrets. Today was my 46th birthday, and the rooftop of our new office buzzed with laughter. Malik had insisted on a barbecue. No candles or champagne, just friends, music, and a cake shaped like an eraser. "For the man they couldn't rub out," he said, winking. I laughed, the sound freer than it had been in years. Jasmine snapped photos, then argued about barbecue sauce. Clara turned up the music. These were my people, not the ones who'd toasted my absence in Venice. I thought of Anna, the waitress who'd slipped me that cheesecake, her small kindness a spark in the dark. I'd gone back to Overlook Lounge once, left her a tip and a note. "Thanks for seeing me." I thought of Malik, his story of betrayal binding us closer than I'd expected. They didn't know the full weight of my pain, but they'd stood with me, and that was enough. Mira had tried to reach me before. Calls, texts, even a visit to the fund's office. I'd been out, but the receptionist described her. Nervous, clutching a letter, her blue dress swapped for jeans. She'd left the letter, but I hadn't opened it. It sat in a drawer, unneeded. My parents, Brent, Tristan, they called too, their voicemails a mix of excuses and pleas. I deleted them, not out of anger, but because I no longer owed them space in my life. They'd chosen their roles. I'd chosen mine. I stepped to the edge of the balcony, the city humming below. My fingers brushed the wedding band, its metal warm from my skin. I'd worn it too long, a habit more than a promise. I slipped it off, the weight lifting as it fell into my palm. I didn't toss it dramatically into the bay. That was for movies. I set it in a box with Myra's old letters, a relic of a life I'd outgrown. The act was quiet, final, a vow to myself. The memory of that night at Overlook Lounge surfaced, the cold flute, the video, the laughter that had cut so deep. I'd sat there, holding back tears, feeling like a shadow. Now I stood here whole, not unbroken, but rebuilt, stronger at the seams. I hadn't screamed at Mira, hadn't cursed my family. I'd simply walked away, choosing myself over their chaos. Malik joined me, a beer in hand. "You good?" he asked, his voice easy but searching. I nodded, the city lights blurring as I blinked. "Better than good," I said. He clapped my shoulder, his grin wide. "Damn right." I thought of Desmond, starting over with that grant. Of the men who'd come after him, each one a reminder that pain wasn't the end. Of Anna, whose cheesecake had been a lifeline. Of Malik, who'd turned a ruined night into a celebration. They were my proof, my foundation. The fun, the loft, this moment. They were mine, built from the ashes of what I'd lost. Myra's message lingered in my mind, her plea for a second chance. But I didn't need her apologies. I had this, friends who laughed with me, a purpose that filled me, a life that was mine alone. I looked out at the bay, the water catching the moon's glow. The ache was still there, faint but real, a reminder of what I'd survived. But so was the calm, the certainty that I was enough. I was Julian Cross, not a shadow, not a wallet, not the fool they'd laughed at. I was the man who'd stood up, walked forward, and claimed a life bigger than their betrayal. Every step, every grant, every laugh tonight was proof I was worth more than they could ever imagine.